Hey guys, it's Lou here from DATEADD.com. Welcome back to another series on DAX, and today we are going to look at 3 DAX time intelligent functions. These functions are parallel period, DATEADD, and SAMEPERIODLASTYEAR. Now, I know many of you will say, well, it sounds pretty much like they do the same thing. And this is really the point of this video. It's not just to delve into how each of these functions work, but how they differ from each other, so that next time you'll know which one is the right one to pick. So let's get started. If we start with parallel period and we look at the syntax, we can see that parallel period returns a table that contains a column of dates that represent a period parallel to the dates in the specified dates column. And very important, in the current context, with the dates shifted a number of intervals either forward in time or backwards in time. The syntax is parallel period, then it wants a dates column, number of intervals, so you can say -1, -2, 1 or 2, which would be plus or forward, and then the interval. Now, for parallel period, the intervals are year, quarter, and month. The return value of parallel period is a table containing a single column of date values. Alright, I'm going to go over the syntax for all 3, and then we'll look at some examples. Okay, so the syntax for DATEADD, let's have a look. DATEADD returns a table that contains a column of dates shifted either forward or backward in time by a specified number of intervals from the date in the current context. Okay, again, so the syntax is DATEADD. It wants a dates column, preferably from the calendar or dates table. Again, you identify the number of intervals, and the interval available with DATEADD, you've got a year, quarter, month, and day. With the parallel period, we only had year, quarter, month. DATEADD also includes day. And again, it returns a table containing a single column of date values. The same period last year. This function returns a table that contains a column of dates shifted 1 year back in time from the dates in the specified dates column, and again within the current context. So the syntax is same period last year and then the dates column value. It returns a single column table of dates values. So again, the same period last year is specific to a year interval, whereas syntax for the DATEADD and for parallel period include other intervals such as month, date, quarter, and day. So let's look at some examples to see how these 3 functions work. Okay, so I'd like to start with the first function, which is the parallel period function. So I've already created a sales measure called total sales, and in this measure all we're doing is just we're calculating the sum of total sales from the sales table. Okay, so let's say new measure, and we are going to call this parallel period. So remember what we want to do here. So parallel period returns, we said, a single or a table containing a single column of date values. So but we want to return the total sales for the dates that we've selected. So we are going to start with calculate. So we want to return the total sales, and this is where in the filter context you add the parallel period. So parallel period, DATEADD, and same period last year are actually all table functions because they return a table with a single column list of dates. So in the calculator under filter, we are going to add the parallel period. From dates, we're going to say we want the date from the calendar table, and then the number of intervals. So we can decide, do we want to go 1 month back, 2 months back, or 1 month forward, whichever way you want it. Let's, for this example, say -1, and let's choose month. Actually, let's start with year. We close the brackets. Great. So from the calendar table, I'm going to bring in, let's add the date hierarchy. Let's make this a table. All right, let's remove quarter. Okay, like that. And then we add our parallel period. In fact, let's add sales also in there so we can compare. Great, let's just format our formula. We are just going to change it to British pound. Okay, so the first things to notice is for sales we have a monthly value, and parallel period is giving us a value which looks like for a year. Because we selected our interval as year, it is showing us a value for the entire year of 2014. Let's just remove day and month. All right, now we can see within the filter context of the year, it gives us total sales for 2013. In our parallel period function, we've said return the previous year, so we said -1. So in 2014, it returns the value for 2013. And in 2015, it returns the value for 2014. Great. So let's quickly add or create the other measures also. So this time, let's do a data add. Again, we're going to calculate total sales. And we're going to say date add calendar table dates column. We're going to say -1, and let's use year as well. Finally, let's format this to British pound. Great, so let's add date add to our canvas. And it looks like it's doing basically the same thing as parallel period. Yes, so it's returned the value for the previous year from 2013 and 2014 respectively. So let's add the same period last year. Again, we're going to calculate the total sales. So for same period last year, all it wants is the same period last year function, and then the calendar date column. So here you cannot specify the interval as we have with parallel period and data add. You just choose the date because same period last year is only got to do with the year. So let's add this. Let's format it. Great. So at this point, it looks like that all three of them return the exact same answer, which is to be expected. So same period last year returns the value from the previous year, and parallel period from the last year, and date add from the last year. So what happens if we add the month to our date? So I'm going to add month. Okay, so as you can see, for parallel period, it has returned, it's still returning the entire year's value. So because we are still in the interval at a year -1 year, it basically removes all filters, the filter context, and only returns the year, even if you add month. Okay, so date add actually returned the monthly values, even though we said -1 year. So here we will see date add 398 February 14, and that's returned the value for February 2013. And the same for March, for April, May, etc. So, and also the same for same period last year. It's also returned the monthly values. Our totals at the bottom are still the same. Okay, so let's quickly switch this up a bit. I'm going to change the interval for DATEADD to month, and for parallel period I'm going to change the interval to month as well. So you see that nothing really changed, except the DATEADD is still returning 1 month. It's now returning the previous month values. Okay, so what's happening here? So even though we've added month into the table, we know that parallel period contains its filter context to only the whole year value, so it will repeat the value. DATEADD and SAMEPERIODLASTYEAR has actually changed and given us the values for that particular month for the previous year. So the same will happen if we add day also to our values. As you can see, now it's also returned the values for days, but for the same time from the previous year. Okay, I'm going to remove day. So what I want to do now is for DATEADD, instead of saying -1 year, I'm going to say -1 month. Okay, so you can see the values practically moved up, and now it's returning the last month value. So February value is moved to March, March to April, April to May, and so on. The same period last year, which is still looking at a year back, is returning the same value for that month for a year back. So as you can see, same period last year, remember we haven't specified an interval. So, and the way it behaves is just like DATEADD. So it seems to be picking up on the filter context or the context you are using within your table, but only for a year back, right? So it doesn't do a month back like we have with DATEADD. It only does the last year. Does that make sense? So with DATEADD, of course, we can also say day. It could also go back 1 day. And then, of course, we'll need to add day into the values. So now it's giving yesterday's value in today. Same period last year is still showing the same period. So for February the 6th, 2014, it's the same 2013 February of the 7th. There's our total sales. So it's showing the same value 1 year later. And that's really the difference. The key to take home from these 3 DAX functions is that you need to understand the filter context within how it operates, and in particular what periods each of these functions work with. If you want to know or see what it returns, you can also select just the parallel period function, for example, and you can say new table. Okay, we give the table a name, we add our function. So if we go to this newly created table for parallel period, you will see it has returned a single column table with all 2014-15 dates in there, because we said +1 year. So 2013 won't be there. If we say -1 here, it will include 2013 and 2014 dates. Okay, so play around and look at these dates or the filter context of the tables to understand how each of these functions will return the values when you've added them to a table with different context, whether it be year, quarter, month, or day. I thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Did you like this video? Then hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and remember to click the bell icon to be reminded of any new videos.
Visit databare.com to find out more about how we can turn your reporting dreams into a reality. Your data, our story.